But the significant part is I built this guy, this army right here. This army was recruited on the very first turn of the game right here in my capital territory. And I moved it forward, and at the end of the second movement phase, my second movement phase, I end up with an unready army here in my central territory. Is there a different way to sort of get the same result and perhaps more effectively use resources and build myself economically? Let's take a look. I'm going to reset the board back to my opening turn. Okay, so now I am back to my starting kingdom setup. This is how we would start the game, with my starting resources plus the 9 gold for my first construction phase, plus the resources for that roll of the resource dice. One of the reasons why people like to go ahead and recruit an army on their first turn is because they don't want to be without an army if something bad happens to this one on the first or second turn of the game. That's why building an army back here and being able to move it up is very popular. Okay, but let's take a look at what happens if I don't build an army this turn. Let's say I go the town route. What I'm going to do is I'm going to build a town right here. I'm going to upgrade this village into a town. So that costs 6 gold, 4 timber, 4 wheat, 4 cattle, and 1 stone. And now I have a town there. If I do that, I would update my economic ledger because I'm making green more powerful. I take the 2 units this time. 2 additional units of resources because I did that. I will go to 3 cattle and then also 1 timber up here on green. Okay, so if I make that move, if I upgrade this village into this town, are there other things that I can do? And yes, I've got resources here. So I think that another thing I might want to do then is get out another village. So taking a look at my economic ledger, I am weak on red and blue. Here's red and blue. Would I be more interested in stone or in wheat? I think in an early phase of the game, I might be more interested in wheat. So I might go over here and also build a village. So a village is 4 gold. Pay that to the market. And then 3 timber, 3 wheat, and 3 cattle. And I will put the village out here on this one. All right, so after having built this village here, what would I try to do next? I still have some gold and resources to build things with during this first construction phase. Right now, it's important to note that this village is not generating gold because it's not connected to the Capital by the Road network. So one of the things I would like to do is be able to connect that to my capital with a road. A road is 3 gold, 2 timber, and 1 wheat, which at the moment I can't do. I have enough gold, but I'm short on timber. I'm short 1 unit of timber. So probably what I would do is see if there was a player at the table who would be willing to trade for that timber. Maybe they need some cattle or stone. So I think I would try to make that trade, but on the other hand, if I couldn't, or if you're feeling a bit vulnerable after having done this particular build, then you might go for some walls. So walls are 4 gold, 1 timber, and 2 stone, which I do have. If I can make that trade in this case, and if I can build that road, then that would be a very strong economic play. That would take 3 gold from my stockpile, and then a timber, as well as another timber that I traded somebody with, a wheat, and maybe I traded them a cow, let's say, so a unit of cattle. That would pretty much end my ability to build anything on the turn. But this would be an extremely strong economic play, because now let's calculate what I would be getting on my economic ledger. So let's go ahead and fill out an economic ledger for what I would have built here. I'm going to save this one so we can compare the starting one to what I have here on this now. So the yellow, I didn't change anything, so I would still be getting 3 timber and 1 wheat, so I wouldn't have to change that. On the red, okay, I didn't do anything on red this turn, so I would still be getting 1 stone there, but what I did change up was blue, so now I would be getting 2 wheat on blue, and then over here on green, I would have increased the amount of cattle that I'm getting, so 3, and then I would also now be getting a unit of timber on green as well. So that's a big difference, I don't know if you can see, in my economic power right there. Over here, let's look at gold. If I were able to build that road there, then how many gold am I now generating? Towns generate 6, so that's 12 gold right there. And then a village is 3, so that would be 15. So just by doing that, I would dramatically increase my resource generation as well as gold generation. So I think this is one of the stronger economic moves that you can make in the opening construction phase of the game. If you weren't able to make this trade, if I wasn't able to make this trade and build this road, then I would be generating a little bit less gold. I would only be generating 12 gold because I wouldn't be able to get gold on the next turn because of this, and I would want to be able to put that road down on the second construction phase. And if I wasn't able to get that road, then probably what I might do is go ahead and use the resources to build a wall instead around this forward town, because that's quite a central hub here for my kingdom now, and it's got a rather advanced settlement in it. So you might also feel just more secure having at least beginning to build fortifications out here around this town. Also very strong, a third option there would be to not, if you were not able to make this play, would be to not build the walls either and just save the resources. Because you can carry resources over from turn to turn, and so if you're thinking, well, I'm going to save that rather than build the walls so that I can begin to think about upgrading this to a town, or maybe getting over here and getting a city, or making sure I can do a village over here, that's also a pretty good move. But what I want to move to show you is what would happen with these armies on my movement phase. Okay, so now let's move to my movement phase. So once everybody is done building everything, then we move around to the sequentially played part of War of Kings. Everybody goes through their event die and movement phase, exploration and battle resolution, and then supply. So let's say it comes around to my turn, I do my event die, now it comes up to my movement, and I decide I want to explore. I'm going to go out here. I'll talk about movement, your options as far as your first movement goes with your armies in a later video. But for now, let's say I move forward and I explore. I roll something on the exploration table. It doesn't matter for the sake of example right here. Let's just say that eventually, or whatever, I am able to conquer this territory. So I'm able to take it, and I turn my army over to unready because it moved. So then everybody goes around the table like this. Everybody takes their event die phase, movement phase, exploration phase, battle phase, and then resupply phase. We come to the end of the entire round. Everybody checks for victory. This is the first turn of the game. No one's won. And then everybody turns their armies back to ready, so they'll be ready to go again. And then we roll for resources. We collect gold. We collect the resources, and then we move into the second construction phase. So then what would I do in this second construction phase? Well, I'm not going to generate all of the resources, because what I'm trying to do is show you something about how the armies work and sort of your army strategy using this sort of build. Well, now I might choose to build a second army. So I have 2 territories now that I could recruit an army into, because I have 2 towns, a town here and a town here. So I could recruit it back here in my capital territory, but since I upgraded this one to a town, I can now recruit an army that is in a forward position, right? So the army, when it is recruited, it is unready. That means that it will not be able to move this turn. And then I build whatever else that I would like to build using the resources that I have. Construction phase ends. Everybody's done with that. Then we move around to everybody's turn, and I do my event die phase, and then it comes back to my movement. And let's say I make the same play in my second movement phase. This is my second movement phase, and move over here to explore, and ultimately are able to conquer or to capture that territory. This is the end of my second movement phase, and what I want you to notice is how similar this looks to what I had shown you before at the end of the second movement phase as far as the positioning of my armies and their state of readiness or unreadiness. In both cases, I ended up with an army here in my forward central territory, and I've explored both of these territories, having captured them both, with an unready army over here, and this army is also unready. The first time I showed this to you, this army was unready at the end of the second movement phase, and so is this one. This one was unready because it had moved over here for an exploration. This army was unready because it had moved from my capital territory to this territory, and because it had moved it to become unready. In this time, this setup, this army is still in the same location, and it's still unready. It's unready because it was just recruited. So what advantage did I gain here? I ended up with the same the same layout as far as my armies go, assuming that exploration would have gone the same way. But I would end up with the same setup with my armies, except for I would have had more resources on my phase 1 and my construction phase 1, the first construction phase that I had, to spend toward the economic development of my kingdom. Because remember, the first time I did this, I spent the 5 gold coins, the 3 wheat, and the 3 cattle to put another army in my capital territory in order to recruit it, to start moving it forward on the next turn. I still ended up using the second way I did the construction phase, the first construction phase. Ended up with the same result, army here in a very powerful territory as far as where it's going to go next. It will be ready for the third movement phase, but I was able to take the resources that I spent in turn 1, rather than spending it toward the development of an army, I spent it toward the economic development of my kingdom, ended up with a much better spread on the economic ledger, ended up with more kingdom on the table, because I didn't choose to build an army the very first turn of the game. So I think this is a very interesting strategy. I think it's a potentially powerful strategy, and it's one that does focus on the economic development of your kingdom. And these are the sorts of things that you should think about when you're trying to design your opening strategy, or how you plan to build out your kingdom.
War of Kings is available on Ravenkeep.net. Shop now and get it for your table.